Hi boys and girls, today we're looking at lesson 22, equivalent fractions, and today we're looking at how we're going to continue building the idea of equivalent fractions. Yesterday we used a number line and you were able to see how they line up equally on a number line, but today we're going to take that a little step further and try and get away from using a number line, but we can actually use drawings and illustrations to help us out too. So here I've got a bunch of rectangles and you can see they're all shaded different ways. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to identify the fraction value of each rectangle. Now this is actually something that we did back in the first and second, maybe even third lesson of Module 5. And I know that's been a little while because we've been out of school and taking that review, but I think you're going to get right back into it. Let's take a look as we zoom in here. Remember, when we do a fraction, there are two parts. A numerator, which is the top number, and the denominator, which is the bottom number. The bottom number, the denominator one, is the really important one. That's going to tell me how many parts I have all together. So how many total parts do I have in this illustration right here? You're right, I have two equal parts. Remember, in a fraction they have to be equal parts. And then how many are shaded? Yeah, I see this guy right here is shaded gray. So I'm going to say this is value of 1/2. 1/2. Let's scoot down here. My denominator again tells me how many equal parts I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I have 5 equal parts. And how many of those are gray or shaded? 1, 2. 2/5 are shaded. Now we don't always need to put those numbers in there, but just as a refresher in our mind, we can do that. If you like to do that, great. If you think, oh, I'm past that, that's okay too. So look at this one. How many total parts do I have? I can even count with my finger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've got 10 total parts. How many of them are shaded or gray? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those. So I've got 8/10. All right. And we got one more down here. How many total parts do I have? 8. Am I going to put 8 on the top or the bottom? If you said the bottom, you are correct. It's 8ths. And how many of those 8ths are shaded? I see these two right here. So I have 2/8. All right, we're halfway there at being able to identify our fractions. All right, let's look at this one here. Now I've got this one. Oh, this one's a pretty quick one. How many rectangles do you see? Yes, I see 4 total equal parts. And how many are shaded in? Yes, 1 shaded in. All right, 1/4 on that one. How about this one? Oh, this one has a lot, so I might want to just use my finger and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 equal parts. And how many are shaded in? 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I have 4/10 on this one. Good job hanging in there. We got 2 more left. I bet you can do this one on your own. What is my fraction going to be? How many are shaded in? How many total do I have? So shaded in, I have 3. Total, I have 6. So I'm going to say 3/6. And I'm sure some of you were already ahead of me on that one. And my last one I'm going to look at. How many total parts do I have? How many are shaded? What's my fraction? My fraction is 4/5 because there are 4 shaded out of 5 equal pieces. All right, so some of the hard work is already done here for us. I'm going to erase the middle work so we can have nice clean fractions here, or those fraction drawings. So now what I want to do is I want to take the numbers from the left, these ones over here, and I want to find which ones they match with on the right. So I'm going to start with my easiest one, 1/2. So is there one on this side, on the right side, that if I were to move the blocks around a little bit, it would look the same? Do you see any of those that also would be half shaded in? If you said 1/2 and 3/6, you're correct. Let's take a quick second and look at an illustration here. If I cut it in half and I shade this half here, oops, sorry, I thought I had a bigger size. That's okay, it'll work. If I shade half, this is now 1/2. But if I break it into 6 pieces, how many are shaded in? Yeah, 3/6. So these are equal fractions. These are equivalent fractions. 1/2 is equal to 3/6. And again, we had that little shortcut the other day that some of you talked about with me already, that you liked to do, that if 2 times 3 equals 6, and we do the same to the top as we do to the bottom, and 1 times 3, we have 3. So that's our little quick shortcut, but that's really a 4th grade skill. So if you're there, fantastic. If not, you're still okay. But the important part to see is that we can shade them in the same. Okay, I'm going to delete that right there. We'll use this as our workspace for a second. Let's look at the next one, 2/5. Now, if we want to have an equivalent fraction, 2/5, can 2/5 equal to 4/5? Is 2/5 equal to 4/5? No, it is not. So we know that it can't be that one. Whenever we're looking at equivalent fractions, they have to be equal. The bottom numbers need to be equal, and the top numbers need to be equal distance away from each other. So this one, we would multiply by 1 to get to 5. This one we multiply by 2 to get to 4, and that's not equal. So we can't use that. Plus, they both have the same denominator, so they can't work that way. So I have 2/5. Look at 4/10 and 1/4. Which one of those looks like it could be the same? Yep, 2/5 and 4/10. Those are the same, because let's look at this. Let's go zoom in a little bit here. If I color in this stripe and this stripe on 2/5, you can even see that their shape looks a little bit the same. That's not always going to happen, but sometimes it will. If I color in those same 2 bars, and I forget about this part, I'm going to even color this white just for our reference here. If I have these ones, too big, my apologies, we'll go back here. If I colored in these ones right here, and we no longer have gray, look what happens. Those two look almost alike. They're pretty much the same figure. So that's one way we can show that too. Now I have, to change my pencil back, now I have 8/10. 8/10. Well, look at 8/10. What do you notice about this figure right here, 8/10? I notice that it is almost all the way filled in. And I look over here on the right side and I can see, oh, 4/5 is almost all colored in, but 1/4 is not all the way colored in. You might have also noticed that if you were to just change one thing, if you were to take this and make this a white line here, if we colored all this one in here and made it white, sorry, it's kind of hard for me to see over my finger, but if I made that one white and I made this one up here gray, maybe I can zoom in here and make it easier. If I made this one gray here, then look what happens when we zoom back out. These two look the same. Now that's not a very good drawing part of that, I'm sorry. But look at this. If we had this part right here and this was white, look at how these two pieces look the same. Those two look exactly the same. Because it's true that if I have 8/4 or 8/10 equal to 4/5, what number would I divide to get to 5 from 10? 10 divided by what gives me 5? Or, going the opposite way, 5 times what gives me 10? Yeah, it's 2. So if I took 2 on the top, I want to take, 2 on the bottom, I'm going to do not multiplication, I'm going to do division of 2 on the top. Does 8 divided by 2 equal 4? Yes, it does. So those also can check to see that they are equivalent fractions, which means these two right here must also be equal, 2/8 and 1/4. Well, exactly. If I move this little dark spot down there, it's going to be the bottom part is filled up, and this one is not. So again, if I had my drawing, if I have it broken into eighths, and I shaded in two parts of that, well, look what happens. If I just go in here and I take away that line, come on, work with me here, small eraser. If I take away that line, I now have 1/4. 2/8, 1/4. And so therefore, you can see that that's going to work out for you. Okay? So that's what you're going to be looking at with our work today. When you're doing your work, you're going to notice that mine below says A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and A, B, C, D. You can feel free to use a separate piece of paper or your Notability app, and you can be able to redraw those if you want to. You can do whatever method you need to try and figure these out. But I think that you can do it. Okay, good luck, work hard, and please take your time and do your best work.